Alright, welcome back, and it's time to continue with the Bishma TWMP platoon, and today I'll be taking a look at the Challenger DS. Now, I actually enjoyed the Challenger DS a lot. This vehicle is not as fast when it comes to top speed and acceleration as the TWMP, but it does have 40 km/h reverse speed, which, as you guys know, I love vehicles that have very good reverse speed, works really well, and this thing also has some very interesting turret armor. Now, the main cannon is a 120mm. It has a little bit less average penetration, but I think you get a little bit better ammo, and you do get better AP shell penetration on the DS than on the TWMP. But this vehicle is not going to get any missiles. You don't have tandem ATGMs on the Challenger DS. When it comes to armor, you do get composite armor on the whole upper hull, and you do get composite armor in the turret, as we will see on the X-ray, but the weak spot is going to be the lower plate. Primarily below the track there is the driver, and behind the driver there is usually ammo. If you shoot a little bit to the right or to the left, you can also hit ammo, which is stored behind the, I think behind the second wheel of the vehicle. We'll take a look at that on the X-ray. But overall, on the whole, there's a lot of homogeneous armor. There's a lot of overall armor on this vehicle. Besides composites, you do have other armor additions on the hull that may or may not increase the overall thickness by a couple millimeters. But this is top tier we're talking about, so on this vehicle you can rely on the turret armor, I would say. On the hull armor, not so much. The turret armor is very good. This vehicle is performing incredibly well in hull down positions. You have aluminum on the tracks, and you also do have some other additions on the overall hull. I also like how you can't really click on the exact armor because the armor is really behind all sorts of things. You'll have to take a look at the X-ray to actually see the actual armor of the vehicle and the actual thickness of the armor. But there's the turret, and overall, when it comes to protection, yeah, it's decent. Not as armored as the TWMP, but you do get overall better reverse speed and a slightly better cannon and faster reload. Now, when it comes to the armor, this is where things get interesting on this vehicle. Upper plate does have composite, and as you can see, there's a couple gaps basically below the cannon. If you manage to plant a shell there, if high explosive hash or even AP or even a missile, it should go through without much of a problem. The turret has a lot of composite as well, both on the front and the sides of the turret will have composites. The rear and top of the turret doesn't seem to have any extra layered protection, but the most important part, which is the front, is definitely well protected. The side turret is also decently protected. On the side hull of the vehicle you don't have composites, but you do get fuel tanks that can in some cases actually serve as added armor. If you ever hit the fuel tank on the T-55 or something like that, you know what I'm talking about. The magic fuel tank armor. There's the cannon breech. You do get a little autoloader at the back, which actually does increase the rate of fire quite a bit. And that's pretty much the X-ray view of the Challenger DS. Overall, a decently armored vehicle, but the vehicle does have some weak spots, which are pretty much, I would say, kind of the most common weak spots found on most of these vehicles. A lower plate, you know, but this vehicle does have that gap around the driver, which I find pretty odd. And if you hit the vehicle there, the shell should just fly right in. The hash ammo on this vehicle is quite interesting, and I will actually show you the hash ammo on the ammo window in a moment, because I believe that's quite interesting to see. One of the better hash shells, I believe. If you want to use this vehicle as a hash launcher, you definitely can, because the hash can penetrate up to 150mm and it has a lot of high explosive, if I remember correctly. So The hash shell on this tank is definitely good, and I will definitely show you all the ammo types. So there we go. 470mm is the AP. I do get 2 AP shells. Obviously I use the L26, which has more penetration, and you do get better ammo, better AP ammo than on the TWMP. Then you also do have some smoke shells, but who uses smoke shells? I don't. Hash and AP ammo combination is what I would recommend on this vehicle. So far it worked really well. And well, let's take the DS for a little ride and let's see how this vehicle will perform. As I mentioned before, this vehicle doesn't have the same acceleration as the TWMP, but it does get a much better reverse, which I would say in top tier reverse is the most important aspect of most of the vehicles, because if you can't rely on armor, you have to rely on speed, and that includes the reverse speed, because it's easier to just reverse back to safety than to rotate the whole hull of the vehicle. I would personally say the biggest drawback of the T72 series and T90 series vehicles is definitely the reverse speed, because if you fire at the enemy and if you don't destroy the enemy tank in one hit, or at least if you don't disable the tank in one hit, there's a good chance that you will be damaged by the incoming fire from the enemy tank. So definitely a vehicle that requires a lot better positioning, and I believe that with the TWMP you definitely need to know where to go and how to use the vehicle in order to take full advantage of its capabilities. Now, this vehicle, as I mentioned before, not as maneuverable as the TWMP, but the reverse speed is definitely. I'm willingly going to trade the less maneuverability for extra reverse speed, because in top tier this is pretty much how you usually play the vehicles. You can play most of these tanks a bit more aggressively, but aggressive play definitely is something that usually can lead to a fail, or aggressive play can get you captured zones and stuff like that, but long strategic play in the long run is definitely going to be able to ensure a victory in most cases, a overall higher chance to win the battle, and in most cases also to get a lot of good stat points. And as I said before, very easy to farm the leaderboard. You don't have to play low tier to farm the leaderboard. You can just play a bit more tactical in top tier or any tier that you like, and you basically will get some decent points and decent scores. When it comes to survivability, I think this vehicle does have blowout panels, although I haven't really had the chance to see the blowout panels in action, so I could be wrong, I could be right, I'm not really sure. But you do have an autoloader with shells in the upper left corner of the back of the turret, which does basically allow you to fire rapidly. That's why you have that 5-second reload. And I personally do like the firepower of this vehicle. As I mentioned before, usually I launch AP shells in top tier, and this vehicle's AP shells definitely are doing a phenomenal job. You can use the missiles on the TWMP, but I find the AP shells flying faster, basically almost insta hit from firing up until reaching the enemy vehicle. When it comes to the overall differences between the other chieftains, this definitely feels roughly the same, I would say. Maybe it does have that special feeling because it's technically a premium vehicle, but if you play the previous challengers and chieftains and vehicles like that, then this vehicle is going to be, we're going to feel about the same as the older generations, because they're about the same vehicle. There's a difference in, really just a difference that this is a premium, but gameplay style and all the rest feels roughly the same. And which one of the two vehicles I would personally prefer here? You know, if I get a map where I can go hull down with ease, I would definitely take the DS, because the gun impression on the DS is much better than the gun impression on the TWMP, at least from my experience. So hold down and tactical positioning on certain maps, this vehicle will have the upper hand. However, when it comes to, if you can find a position where you can hide the lower plate, then you can definitely play the TWMP just fine as well. It really comes down to the situation. In some cases this vehicle is definitely better, in some other cases the TWMP is better. It really comes down to the map, and it also comes down to the player, because some players might prefer the TWMP, some players will prefer the DS. In my case, I play both depending on the map. Well, this is not looking good. I already kind of accepted the defeat. The second I saw my team die out, I knew that this is going to be a fail. So let me see how many tanks I can... Let's see how many tanks I can bring down with me. Well, that's one. That's one less. I'm getting jumped. Okay, that hit the engine. That's a lucky moment. Or not a lucky moment, I don't know. BMP destroyed, that's tank number 2. There's a revenge bomber coming, but I'm unable to move, so the bombs will get me. That's the third vehicle, Leopard 2A4, revenge bomber drop bombs. Yeah, the bombs are close. Leopard destroyed, that's tank number 3. And that's the T-64BV. But I got revenge bombed, and yeah, I was able to destroy 3 tanks before I got blown up. However, it's fine. Pretty good last turn. So that was the Challenger DS, a very interesting vehicle that I will definitely be playing more, and you can expect more videos on this vehicle in the future. So with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed. If you would like to support me, feel free to like and subscribe. And with that being said, stay safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.